So from that, I kind of want to switch gears to, your favorite sport, that'd be Major League Baseball. But we had a Major League Baseball draft last night, right? And I don't want to get into how pissed off the rest of us are right now that Major League Baseball just can't figure this thing out. However, I didn't get around to checking this out, but I need to, and maybe you just have the answer because you're Colin Kennedy. I feel like between baseball and football, I know Oklahoma has had a first-round draft pick for 3+ years, but I'm thinking about that streak. Is it longer than that?
All right, so Oklahoma baseball has actually had a pretty long string of draft picks when it comes to MLB draft. I'm actually going to pull up the numbers here because it's pretty staggering.
Well, I mean, I'm looking
baseball.
I'm looking for first-rounders to start.
Yeah, so
okay.
Oklahoma baseball has had first-rounders in the top 10 rounds every year since 2011, and they've had first-rounders obviously being Kyler Murray, Kade Cavalli. There are a number of guys that have been selected in the top.
Right.
I believe in the history of the program, if I remember correctly, there have been 10 first-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
Don't quote me on that exactly, though, but I know that obviously Cavalli and then OU signee Ed Howard, if you want to expand it to signees as well, Oklahoma's had their fair share going back to, of course, Bobby Witt Jr., just last year's draft.
Well, no, we count that because, I was actually having this discussion with another baseball enthusiast and, OU draft nut last night, and I was going, okay, so do we get to count these commitments that Skip Johnson earned from guys like Ed Howard and Bobby Witt Jr. Toward the tally? It's like, yeah, I would, because, I mean, what they have said is if I did not choose to go to Major League Baseball, I would have gone there, and you get to keep that in your back pocket forever, which I get. So, Kyler Murray, number 9 overall selection, and then John Gray, that's the one I forgot about, 3rd overall in 2013, along with Kade Cavalli going 22nd overall. So that's 3 in the past decade, which I think, so Kyler, Baker, then this year it was Kenneth Murray and CeeDee Lamb. So that's 3 years. So we're looking at back-to-back years. Okay, so just back-to-back years because they didn't have anybody in 2017 get drafted in the first round out of OU baseball. All right, that was really my question. But Cavalli going in the first round, I don't know, man. Maybe it's because I just don't follow it as closely as many others do. But that was kind of surprising to me given that he didn't really get an opportunity to show much, and people are really, this season didn't get an opportunity to show much. And it seemed like he was propelled forward from what he did while playing for the U.S. team in last summer. Do I have that wrong, or is that the general thinking here?
You're definitely onto something.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of factors here. Cavalli getting to participate with the USA team was definitely a big deal. He got to sharpen his talents, be coached by some really sharp minds, and as a result, I think he became a better college baseball player. I would also add that, you're talking about a guy who, as a sophomore, had about a 3.28 ERA on the mound in 12 starts, and he also carried an over 300 batting average at the plate in 70-plus at-bats. So around that time, I remember talking to a lot of scouts, and they're like, this is the time where we've really had him catch our attention because this dude is handling both ends, and he's doing it at a level higher than a lot of other players. For me, what really tipped the scale, although you'll look at the numbers and say, okay, in a limited amount of action last season, he had an over 4 ERA, and the strikeout numbers were really good, the walk numbers were really good, but he has a high number of on-base percentage guys, and there are just a little bit of concerns here and there. What really tipped the scale for me is this guy decided for the first time in the history of his baseball career that he was going to focus solely on pitching. Mm-hmm. And once he did that and focused through the offseason and allowed Skip Johnson to spend a whole lot of time with him, just focusing on that one aspect of the game. This dude got leaps and bounds better. I can't even really begin to describe how good this guy looked on the mound in person in some of those few games in the last season. Now, I would also mention to you that Kade Cavalli is someone who has boosted his draft status because of the baseball IQ, some of the intangibles that you don't necessarily see on paper. For the first time in, 30-plus years of coaching, Skip Johnson allows Kade Cavalli to be the first pitcher he's ever allowed to call his own game. That speaks volumes, guys. Skip Johnson coaches freaking Clayton Kershaw in his spare time. Like, that's a big deal to allow a guy like Kade Cavalli to call his own game. As a result, I think when you talk about this guy being about 6'4", he's probably going to be 230. I mean, he's a big-bodied dude, and he's got the velocity sitting 94, 95, 96, 97, can get up to 98. Really good stuff in terms of the breaking ball. There are just a lot of the tools that come together. Now, he kind of slid, and when you talk about the surprises, he got in that first round, which is really surprising if you knew who he was, maybe as a freshman. But some people were also pretty surprised that he dropped a little bit into those 20s. But for me, it also points to some of the things that the MLB Network analysts were pointing out. We talk so much about 5-tool players in baseball, but one of the most instrumental tools is that 6th tool, which is durability. Are you on the field? And Cav has a history of injury problems. I mean, it's just a matter of fact. It's a bummer thing to say. For me, it's not really that much of a concern, but I think that he was able to get into that first round and fulfill that surprise that some people may have, because now that injury concern can kind of fade away now that he's focusing solely on the pitching aspect of the game, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And I actually, man, the more I see Skip Johnson recruiting, the more I'm going, now I'm just salivating about kids that probably aren't going to be here, like Bryce Clavin and now Ed Howard, who was the number 1 rated shortstop in this class. But like, I feel like we talked a bit about him, but what are OU fans missing out, and what are the Cubs getting in Ed Howard?
I mean, this guy, he may be the best pure defender in the entire draft class, no matter position or ranking. I mean, he's just such a good guy in the field. That just speaks volumes to what he can do with the glove, with his arm. For me, I had him as a top 10, 12, 15 kind of guy. He goes at 16 to the Cubs, and obviously the video is going viral today that Theo Epstein tells Ed Howard as a kid playing Little League Baseball he's going to draft him one day, and then 6 years later, guess what happens? But there's good reasons for that. I mean, this guy, Ed Howard, for me, not only is he an incredible talent in the field, RJ, but the one knock on him was the approach at the plate. And obviously this guy, okay, a season ago, he had kind of an up and down year at the plate, and then obviously this past season, Chicago high schoolers weren't able to play baseball because of obviously the coronavirus pandemic and how Chicago high school baseball works out. So Ed Howard really had kind of 2 years taken away from him. But when you put on the tape, this guy tracks the ball really well. He knows how to get the barrel of the bat to the ball. He just knows how to understand the game and then put it into execution. And so I think that Chicago's getting a future star. I really thought that he was someone that should have gone in the top 10, top 12 range. But for him to go to 16 and Chicago to be able to get an in-state guy, I mean, Chicago Cubs fans should be absolutely thrilled. I mean, one day we're going to be talking about Ed Howard as an absolute perennial superstar. And, I mean, you're going to see guys like Bobby Witt Jr., Ed Howard roaming the big leagues and think, man, what happens if they end up in Norman? But, hey, that's what Skip Johnson's doing these days on the recruiting trail. And I tip my cap to him for at least putting in the effort trying to get these top-tier guys on campus.
Addison Russell, Javier Baez, better watch your back. I'm just put it out there. That's all I'm saying. So to cap off this segment, in 2013, John Gray gets drafted in the first round. In 2013, Lane Johnson gets drafted in the first round. 2018, Baker Mayfield goes number 1 overall to the Cleveland Browns. Also, Kyler Murray gets drafted in the first round of Major League Baseball. And then 2020, we see Kenneth Murray Jr., CeeDee Lamb get drafted, and then, of course, we saw Kade Cavalli get drafted. So good things tend to happen with OU baseball if they're happening with OU football, and I really love how this is all working together.